Hey, welcome to Niners Radio 49 Behind the Enemy Lines. Professor B here with my guest, the voice of the Buffalo Bills, Chris Brown for WGR Radio 550. How you doing? Happy Thanksgiving.
Yeah, happy Thanksgiving. Good to be with you.
Well, we're getting ready to preview the Niners and the Buffalo Bills for Sunday Night Football. The kickoff time in the Bay Area is going to be at the time will be at 5:20 Pacific. The game will be on NBC, and the primetime matchup: Niners and Bills. The Bills right now, two teams. The Niners are trying to fight to stay alive for the division in the NFC West, while Buffalo trying to keep at bay with the two-time defending Kansas City Chiefs for the top spot in the AFC. Just tell me what's going on in up in Western New York.
Well, the Bills are coming off the bye, and they're winners of six straight. They've scored 30 points in each of their last 5 games, and they've done it despite having a share of injuries themselves, not as many as the Niners, but they've had some key players out of their lineup, and they haven't missed a beat. And, coming off that win over the Chiefs to end their unbeaten streak at 9 games, they're feeling pretty good about where things are at. All those things being said, I still don't think they played their best and most complete game. And now with the number one seed in the AFC in play, I think there's a lot for them to be motivated about. With Miami losing on Thursday night on Thanksgiving, they have a chance to win and clinch their fifth straight division title with a win on Sunday night.
Well, yeah, this is they have not done something like this in back to back to back years, and going back to the late '80s, early '90s, where the Bills, of course, were the class of the AFC East. This is almost like Back to the Future of the late '80s, early '90s, when the Bills and that rivalry between them and Miami, where Buffalo really started to dominate Miami. At once upon a time, the Dolphins lost 20, or the Bills or Miami dominated Buffalo in the 70s, winning all 20 of their head-to-head meetings. In fact, between 1967 to about 1980, since the merger between 1970 through 86, my Buffalo had lost 31 out of 34 versus Miami. But then by the late 80s, when Marv Levy took over in the early part of the 86 season, till the time they won the AFC East in 88, from 88 to about 95, they won the division title. They went to the playoffs, I believe, six out of 5 or 6 out of the or 7 out of 8 years, including the memorable run when that miracle finish against Houston in that wild card game to get them all the way back to the Super Bowl, beating their rival down at Joe Robbie Stadium. And some high times for Buffalo. I've been telling a lot of people I'm still waiting for that 49er Bills Super Bowl, which it's very, very slim it's going to happen. The Niners are in a must-win game. They've been hit by so many injuries this year. And, coming off a Super Bowl loss to the dreadful Kansas City Chiefs, it's just so hard to turn it back on when you're playing that many games and put up all that mileage.
Yeah, I mean, they've probably played an extra season's worth of games with all the games and deep runs into the playoffs that they've had. Funny, my broadcast partner, Steve Tasker, who was part of those 4 Super Bowl teams, was actually talking about that on our daily show, One Bills Live, this week, talking about when, they had gone to 4 straight Super Bowls, they had essentially played an extra season's worth of football, and they just kind of got worn out from 1994, and they didn't even make the playoffs that year. Finished that season 7-9
Mm-hmm.
before they won another AFC East title in '95. So yes, it absolutely takes a toll.
Yeah, it's funny. That same year when Buffalo did, this is the fun fact, the stat of the day. Between 1988 through 1994, either the 49ers or the Buffalo Bills or both played in the respective conference championship games. That happened in '88. It was the Bills losing to the Bengals 21-10 and the AFC Championship game at Riverfront Stadium with the high explosive offense Boomer Esiason. The Bengals, Boomer Esiason won the NFL's MVP that year, only to see them lose the heartbreaker to our beloved 49ers with Joe Montana in the finish known as the drive in Super Bowl 23 down at Miami against the Bengals. And then, of course, Bill Walsh walks off as a Super Bowl champion. Then the following year, George Seifert's first year, the Niners won it all again. Buffalo did win the AFC East, but they had to struggle to win that division. And the one game I remember from 1989 was the Jim Kelly's quarterback keeper, the final play in Week 2 against the Miami Dolphins. They stole that win down in Miami. That 9-7, 8-8 was the one game was the difference between the Bills winning the AFC East and the Dolphins not making the playoffs. Was that game back in Week 2, 35 years ago in 1989?
Yeah, and that's a long time ago now. And look, the difference now is the Bills have not been able to get past the Kansas City Chiefs in the postseason,
Mm.
and that's why they have not even advanced to the championship game since 2020, because they've been getting stopped in the divisional round each of the last 3 years. So trying to get over that hump when they do reach the postseason.
Yeah, and of course, people forget the Bills. They talk about this rivalry between those two. This goes back to the original AFL back in the mid '60s, about the mid '60s, 1965, '66. Kansas City, I think they beat the Bills in the AFL championship in that to advance to the first inaugural Super Bowl in January of '67, when their quarterback, the late Jack Kemp, who was a center, who his son Jeff Kemp played one season for the 49ers back in '86, filled in for the injured Joe Montana in '86, though. So there is kind of some good connections between them. Of course, outside of O.J. Simpson playing for both the Bills and the Niners, he's a local guy. He passed recently, but Mario Clark was a member of the Super Bowl champion 49ers in '84, played there, and Joe Cribbs, who came in a trade. Bill Walsh traded for draft picks with the Buffalo Bills prior to the start of the 1986 season.
Right. And there's a connection nowadays because Josh Allen is a native of Firebaugh, California, and grew up an ardent 49ers fan. As a matter of fact, the first
Fresno
NFL game
State,
he ever
right
went
near Fresno.
to, yeah, was the San Francisco 49ers game. He was a young teen at the time. So he grew up rooting for the 49ers. So it's not the first time he's playing them. The last time he had to play them was during the COVID year down in Arizona because San Francisco couldn't have home games. And they won that game, I think, by 10. I want to say it was 34-24. But, yeah, he'll get him at home this time, and I'm expecting his family to be here in town watching that one as well.
Well, the story was a great thing by Bills Mafia this week. They end up donating money to Travis Ward. The Niners been so hit by so many injuries. They lost Brandon Ayuk for the season, tore his ACL, had that contract holdout at the start of training camp. They just been Brock Purdy didn't play last Sunday against the Green Bay Packers, and then they just been hit by so many injuries. The Bills Mafia donated money to Travis Ward, who just lost his daughter, a 1-year-old, was just about to hit 2. And that is a very sweet thing to reach out, Bills Mafia, to the 49er family, or we call ourselves the 49er Empire.
Yeah, and, I know Bills Mafia is probably most known for breaking tables at tailgates, but I kind of wish they were more known for the charitable work that they do, going all the way back to the time when, the Cincinnati Bengals beat the Ravens in Week 17 of the 2017 season to help the Bills back into the playoffs and end their 17-year playoff drought. From the time they donated to Andy Dalton's foundation in droves for winning that game for them, to other instances where, remember, Lamar Jackson in an AFC divisional playoff in 2020 suffered a concussion and had to leave the game that the Bills won to advance to the AFC title game. They donated money to his charity after they were, not happy to see him leave the game injured. I mean, time and time and time again, the Bills Mafia steps up in a charitable way to often help opponents, which I think says a lot about, how giving they are. And, we're in the giving season now, and that's a tragic story for Charvarius Ward and his wife. To lose Amani Joy at just 1 year old. It's just so tragic. And I know that touched the hearts of Bills Mafia. So it's nice to see that they're helping his family out in a charitable way.
Yeah, and also, how about the story of Hamlin 2 years ago on that dreadful Monday night where, I mean, he collapsed. Just tell us the story. It was so bad that they had to just like they had to just they just had to. It was like a no contest. They just stopped the game in
Right.
Cincinnati.
Yeah, unprecedented. They ended up initially the game was postponed, and then by the next day it had been canceled by the league. And the players really exercised their power after what had gone down on the field. I mean, essentially, Damar Hamlin had to be brought back to life twice because he coded twice on the field. And thankfully, the medical professionals on the Bills sideline were quick to act, along with the athletic trainers.
The real MVPs, by the
Yeah,
way, they're the real MVPs.
quite literally saved his life. And then the medical experts at University of Cincinnati Medical Center, putting him in a medically induced coma to kind of let his body settle down before bringing him out of that medically induced coma. And fortunately for Damar, he had all of last season to kind of get used to playing football again and the contact and mentally getting over the hurdle of taking contact again, knowing that one in a million shot that caused his cardiac arrest, is very, very unlikely to happen ever again. And so
I
I
hope
think this
not.
year it's encouraging to see, Damar as a starter now and playing meaningful snaps and helping his team win football games.
Yeah, that just kind of gave me shades. When that saw that happen, it gives me shades of what happened to Hank Gathers almost 35 years ago out in Los Angeles, where he collapsed during the West Coast Conference tournament. Unfortunately, he did not make it. But I know people, I know a few people who grew up with Hank Gathers in the Philadelphia area. Such a horrible thing what happened to him when he was at Loyola Marymount. Who knows what happens if that it never happens. He's a high prospect in the top 5 players in the NBA lottery that
Right.
finishes.
He dealt with cardiac arrhythmia, which I think is a little bit different. He had a heart condition, and Damar Hamlin had a cardiac arrest due to Komodo carditis, Komodo cordis, which happens when you take a shock to your chest at just the right moment of a heart rhythm that can throw the heart out of rhythm and into cardiac arrest. So two different things, but both dealing with the heart. Fortunately, Damar's situation had a much more positive outcome.
Now let's preview this matchup between the Bills and the 49ers. These are two teams who are the Niners are just fighting for their life to stay afloat in the NFC West. This is an interconference game. The the Bills, who are just one of the few times you get a chance to see the Bills every 4 years. Unfortunately, we didn't get a chance out there because I do 49ers tailgate shows, not just being a podcaster, but this is my third year being the mediator information director because I started off being a roving reporter with them, and then the guy who started Niners Radio stepped away after 10 years, and then I told him, hey, I'll take over. I'll take over, and I'm kind of been in a transitional period for a couple of years ago, so I kind of trying to enhance it, getting people like you to give a perspective what's going on with the Buffalo Bills. But the this team, Sean McDermott, another protege of Andy Reid, and part of the of that tree, along with John Harbaugh. The defense playing at a high level, and this tell us about the Bills' defense.
Well, they've been great at taking the football away. They've got a turnover, at least one takeaway in every game this season. So that 11-game streak is the longest active streak in the league. They lead the league in turnover differential at plus 14, and giving extra possessions to Josh Allen usually ends up being a good thing. And I think it's a big reason, why this team has scored at least 30 points each of the last 5 outings. So the defense is no longer one of those units that leads the league in total defense or run defense or even pass defense, where they had ranked very high for several years. They are a splash play defense based on takeaways, sacks, tackles for loss, and that's how they impact games now under Sean McDermott and new coordinator Bobby Babbage.
All right, and then for the Buffalo Bills, I mean, they went through a lot though. This is, by the way, your first year doing Bills radio. You replaced somebody there, but
John
the
Murphy, yeah.
legend, he kind of, but the legendary Van Miller, he's a legend there in Buffalo. He is to what he means to Buffalo football, like I think Merle Reese is to the Eagles, the late Jim Donovan is to the Cleveland Browns. What all these great announcers tell us more about the legend Van Miller on the Bills network. He was there doing the Jim Kelly, Thurman Thomas, which is he's one of my favorite running backs back in the late '80s, early '90s. Your thoughts about the great Van Miller?
Yeah, I was fortunate enough. My first year on the Bills radio network was Van's last year calling games in 2003. Um, I was a college student when he was calling the Super Bowl year games, but certainly a legend for sure. He's in the broadcasting wing of the Pro Football Hall of Fame, um, and deservedly so. And yes, is unquestionably a legend. Our broadcast booth is named after him at Highmark Stadium. So his picture hangs on the wall in our broadcast booth. So the respect runs deep, the reverence runs deep for Van Miller in Western New York, even now after his passing.
Well, another Buffalo, he has his ties and he has a show on. He's the voice of the 49ers, Greg Papa. He's from that area up there
Yes.
in Buffalo, and I know I've always and he has a lot of ties up there because Buffalo's right up there near Toronto. We have a lot of 49er fans going to be out there. The Niner faithful going to be traveling up there to the Western New York. There's some great places to go out. They're going to have some meet and greets over there. Just tell us more about the vibe in Buffalo. It's small town.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of our players liken the atmosphere here to a college football atmosphere. I mean, people in Buffalo live, breathe, and die Bills. I mean, that's all they really focus on, especially once the weather turns. And that could be a factor on Sunday night because we do have snow in the forecast. And
Woo! Gotta run that football. Gotta run that
yeah,
football.
so it looks like Saturday the snow is going to start. It's unclear how much we're going to get at this point and how long it's going to last. Um, they were initially calling for snow during the game. That prospect is weakening now, but it looks like it is going to snow starting tomorrow, and that's going to probably carry into Sunday. Whether it's still snowing at game time remains to be seen. Um, Temperatures will be in the upper 20s. So it'll be a chilly one, but I know San Francisco just played in Green Bay last week, so no big deal.
Yep, I mean, and they did fly back to the Bay Area after that game Sunday, so they did not go like probably down South Florida or somewhere warmer climates to practice in the Eastern time zone. But this is going to be a big challenge. The Niners and the Bills. It's a very rarity that these two teams hook up. The only thing I can remember, like I was telling you, they came very close of going to the hooking up in the Super Bowl. And I still tell a lot of Bills fans, a lot of them who migrate out here to the transplants to the Bay Area, I said, man, I'm still waiting for my Super Bowl, Niners Bills Super Bowl since like 1990, since I was in like a junior high, middle school, and I was doing that time between 90 through 93 when they went to the four Super Bowls. Buffalo, the Niners, of course, were 4 seconds short in 1990 of them possibly playing the Bills down at Tampa at Super Bowl 25. The Niners were shooting for the three-peat. Didn't happen. And then in between that, then 91, the Bills got back there again. The Niners didn't even make the playoffs despite going 10-6. Then the Niners losing twice to the Dallas Cowboys in the NFC Championship, which they end up becoming the team of the 90s. And then the Niners finally won the fifth Super Bowl with Steve Young, but Buffalo doesn't even make the playoffs. But the one game I remember back in 1992, the no punt game, what was between the Niners and Bills, was that track meet shootout at Candlestick Park between Jim Kelly and Steve Young.
Right, and the Bills won that one, if I remember right, it's 35-31, I think is how it finished up, somewhere around there. And no punts in the game. There were three
Off day,
turnovers.
off day for the punters. They got a day
Yeah,
off.
there were three turnovers, so there were some change of possessions that way. But other than that, uh, you were getting it on a kickoff because everybody was scoring. Super entertaining game for sure. And it's funny if you talk to Jim Kelly about that game, um, he'll say a game besides that for him tops it. And it was a game in the USFL when he was playing for the Houston Gamblers, and Steve Young was playing for the LA Express. And,
There
I
is
think
some,
they
yeah.
both, I think they both went over 400 yards. One of them might have had 500 yards passing, and I think it was an even bigger shootout. And he says every time he sees Steve Young, that's the first thing they talk about. The Houston LA Express USFL game that
USFL.
they did against one another, not all the battles that they had as Bills and Niners respectively.
I'm going to go look up that Wikipedia of that when I do my 49ers regular podcast live. We'll talk about that game. And of course, we're going to replay this one as well. But that's some good stuff, Chris. I mean, the Niners and Bills. I mean, I hope someday that could happen. I know it looks bleak right now, but I hope someday it would be a Niner Bills Super Bowl. I even actually, about 3 years ago, I was down at Fisherman's Wharf in San Francisco. Ran into a Buffalo Bills fan. I took a picture with a Bills fan saying, "Hope I picked him at the beginning of the year. Said it would be Niners and Bills in the Super Bowl." And it's been close. One of these years something's gonna have to give. One of these years that these two teams hook up because I mean, San Francisco and the Niagara Falls are the two intertwined continents of these two great communities.
Yeah, and I know Chris Berman, back in his heyday with ESPN, was picking Bills Niners Super
Oh
Bowls
yeah, oh
probably as
yeah.
much as you were, and it just didn't come to fruition. So I don't know if it's going to happen this year. I know Bills fans are hoping that we can finally get back there after a long hiatus. So we'll see if the stars are aligned for Buffalo this year.
Well, the last time the Bills was in this, it's funny in perspective. The last time the Bills was in the Super Bowl, I was a junior in high school. The last time the 49ers won the Super Bowl, I was a senior that following year. So, when by the time they played Super Bowl 29, that's when the Bills replaced the Chargers, or the Chargers replaced
Chargers
the
replaced the
Bills.
Bills, yeah.
In fact, between 1986 through January of 87 through January of 94, it was either the sandwich between there was the Broncos or the Bills combined to go to 7 Super Bowls, represent the AFC 7 of the 8 years between 86 through 93, and then the only other team sandwiched in was the Cincinnati Bengals. So it was the first Super Bowl in 1995, January 95, that did not either involve either the Bills or Broncos since January of 89 when the Niners beat the Bengals in Joe Robbie Stadium, the same site of the Niners' last Super Bowl win against the San Diego Chargers.
Yeah, that was that 83 quarterback class, Elway and Kelly.
Yep, Elway, Kelly, and of course Steve Young was part of that '83 class too. Before he went to Tampa, then and that
And
the thing is,
Marino.
yeah, with Marino, but it was just too bad the Niners. Joe Montana never got a chance to face Kelly in the regular season game, because of course the 1 year I think he didn't play because the Niners had wrapped up the NFC West in home field. They was going to give him a rest, and then Steve Young got the snaps, and then the year they won back-to-back Super Bowls. And then in '92, it was pretty much Steve Young's team in '92. And
Right, because
Joe Montana
Joe had moved
got
on to Kansas City, and actually Kansas City was the team that the Bills faced to go to their last Super Bowl, and they beat them in the AFC title game that year.
Black Sunday for Bay Area 49er fans on both, because everybody hates the Chiefs now. What Patrick Mahomes did, but
Oh
Joe
yeah,
Montana, he was my guy, and Steve Young. I mean, so it was a Black Sunday because we wanted to see a Young in Montana Super Bowl, which it didn't happen. But Montana was not the Montana when he was in his prime. 3-time Super Bowl, 4-time Super Bowl champ, 3-time Super Bowl or league MVP. But the Bills, they were a machine. They were no huddle offense. You had Thurman Thomas. You got Andre Reed, Don Beebe. You had great Steve Tasker, Pete Metzelaars, Bruce Smith, and and Lindy Infante was a great offensive minded coach. And then you had the great Bill Polian, him and the late John Butler, both responsible as well.
Yeah, for constructing that team. And I think you're thinking of Ted Marchibroda, the
Ted
offensive coordinator.
Marshall, not
They ran the
Fonte.
offense. Yeah, no huddle offense. Right. He was a brilliant coordinator. And look, I mean, on defense, it was Bruce Smith, but you can't forget Darryl Talley,
Derry Talley.
Elliott Bennett, Henry
He was Bennett.
Jones. I mean, it was a talented, talented,
Shane
talented team.
Carlin.
Yeah, it's just a shame that they could just never get over the hump and get one.
Well, the NFC was just was the stronger league at that time. You know, the Niners winning the 5-4, winning those Super Bowls, and then you had to look at the New York Giants, and then the Washington Redskins, and then Dallas Cowboys, who were the Niners' thorn. But those some great memories. And then after for a while, Buffalo had that run. Then all their guys start retiring. And then by the late '90s, you had the young Eric Moulds, Doug Flutie. I got a chance to meet Doug Flutie one night after a 49er Chargers exhibition preseason game back over 2 decades ago. And then, they lose that heartbreaker in that playoff game against the Titans January of 2000. And then after that, things just really, there were some lean years for Buffalo for a very long time.
Yeah, it's known here in Buffalo as the drought because they went 17 years without making the playoffs,
Wow.
basically from 2000 to 2016. And then Sean McDermott came to town and everything changed, thankfully. And that's why the Bills and the Chiefs are the only two teams to make the playoffs each of the last 5 seasons.
The two winningest teams in the AFC and the two winningest teams over the last 4 or 5 years in the NFC, both the San Francisco 49ers and the Philadelphia Eagles.
Yeah. So we'll see who's standing at the end this year. The Bills fans just want them to get past the gosh darn Chiefs. I know the Bills fans feel like Patrick Mahomes is their problem, and I try to explain to them Patrick
They've
Mahomes
been the
is everybody's
49ers problem too.
He's everybody's problem.
Well, if the Niners don't make it this year, I wouldn't mind to see either you guys or the Detroit Lions play in the Super Bowl. The Lions are just like Bills fans suffered. I mean, they got the worst end of the stick because Detroit and Buffalo are not that far. They're in that upper part Midwest, and
Yeah, the
Buffalo's
Rust Belt.
right in it. But what was that again?
It's called the Rust Belt. Basically,
Just-
Buffalo, Cleveland, Detroit. It's the old
Pittsburgh.
Rust Belt, the old manufacturing blue-collar cities.
Erie, Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
Oh, they're so close to each other. They got that down to earth. I like that. But the one thing I'd say for Bills fans, please don't be crashing the tables because I don't want to see nobody mess their back up for long term. I'm serious though.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's just kind of look. To be honest with you, it's only about 10 to 15% of the fan base that does that. I'd like to think that the majority of the fan base is more of the charitable kind that you've come to know recently here with the donations to various sports charities. So hopefully, Bills Mafia across the country is more renowned for that than busting up tables.
Yeah, I think that's a really token. And for us, now I represent the 49er Empire. We do some charitable work though too for as well. And I do I'm getting ready to do my preparing down the stretch here. I do my annual Niners Radio 49 holiday drive. Give out stuff for the homeless and some people who's less fortunate. That's kind of my as a broadcast entrepreneur. But Buffalo is one of those places I'd love to have on my checklist to do. And I'd love to check out the Buffalo Wild Wings, though, too. Not the I'm not a big fan of spicy food. I have I can only very sensitive tongue, and I can really tolerate very much little tolerate with spice in my system, though.
Yeah, so you go mild wings, you'll be straight.
Yeah, but I think the Niner faithful are going to have a great time up there Sunday night. It's going to be cold, and the temperature is going to be 25 to 26 degrees, and the 14-mile-an-hour wind chill factor.
Bring your boots.
Oh yeah. You can't. Well, I mean, I'll tell you what. You cannot bring this on a up in Buffalo. You're going to have.
Not gonna work. That's not going to work.
Not happening. No. These could be designated as slippers inside your hotel room, the equivalent of having the designated heater, because you're going to have frostbites next morning. It's not going to be pretty, and they do not heal within a day or so.
Yeah, it's like we say here in Buffalo, when you go to a game, if you don't bring it with you, you can't put it on if you don't bring it with you. So bring it
And I'm
with
gonna
you.
right. And one more thing, before we wrap it up, the great line by the great Bruce DeHaven, who was a special teams coordinator with the 49ers and was with Buffalo, why they had so much success. Where else you want to be is right here, right now.
Yeah, that's Marv Levy's line.
Or Marv
Uh,
Levy and Bruce
that's
DeHaven.
Marv
Yeah.
Levy's line, the Hall of Fame coach. That's his line. Yeah.
He still looks great in his 90s though.
He's
And he went to
99 years old.
wow. He still looked like he's about 65 in a timeline, but hey, he's another Cal Golden Bear graduate from Cal Berkeley. So, there is some historical
Yeah, he
parts of
coached
that.
out of Cal. That's right.
Yeah, he coached for those bad Chiefs teams in the mid-late 70s, and then he came to Buffalo. But, hey, Chris, thank you for coming on. Wishing you, Bills Mafia, all of your families happy belated Thanksgiving and happy Black Friday. Thank you for coming on. Hope we could catch with you soon one of these years, maybe in a couple years, depending on where the Niners are in the scheduling or maybe the Super Bowl, whenever. But thank you very much for coming on, though.
All right. Catch up with you. Happy holidays.
You too, Chris. All right, that is Chris Brown, the voice of the Buffalo Bills on WGR Radio 550. Your 49ers will be taking on the Buffalo Bills for Sunday Night Football. Kickoff time will be at 5:20 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on NBC Sports with Mike Tirico and Chris Collinsworth with the call. And for all you, and that will be and then on the Niners Radio Network with Greg Papa and Tim Ryan. Football Night in America will precede prior to the Niners Bills game. That will be at 4 o'clock Pacific on NBC. For the latest news on 49ers and so much more, go to youtube.com/@NinersRadio49. Professor B signing off for now. Thank you for watching Behind the Enemy segment. We'd like to thank Chris Brown, the voice of the Buffalo Bills, for being our guest on Niners Radio 49.
Small businesses create a
We're gonna wrap.
The Bills make me wanna shout. Kick your heels up and shout. Throw your hands up and shout. Throw your head back and shout. Come on now, the Bills are making it happen now. Stand up now, come on and shout. Yeah, 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 yeah. Say you will. Shout it right now, baby. Say you will. Come on, come on. Say you will. Come on and shout. Say you will. Yeah. Shout. Buffalo's happening now. Shout. We're on the move now. Shout. The Bills are happening now. Shout. They're making it happen now. Shout. We got the spirit, a lot of spirit, yeah. Shout. We got the spirit. Shout. Just watch it happen now. Hey, 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 hey. Let's go Buffalo. Let's go Buffalo. Let's go Buffalo. Let's go Buffalo. The Bills make me wanna shout.